You are listening to the Short Convos podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Short Convo podcast. I'm JC Warrior of Light Cashman, and this is...
As Miralai, we are available Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and of course YouTube if you would like the video version, which you might be watching right now.
So, good morning, Az. We usually do these podcasts normally evening, isn't it, when we catch up?
Normally evening, but yeah, as things move on and evolve, we're adjusting and adapting to the time. So
who knows? Someone could be watching this in the middle of the night, couldn't they? So good
say
day.
you're a morning person. I know you're not an early riser, but would you say you're a morning person at all?
Nah, not at all. I don't do mornings unless it's to be somewhere for a set event, i.e. kickoff is at a set time. Yes. I very struggle with mornings. It's always been a thing. My family, my dad was self-employed and didn't work to a usual 9 to 5 as such. So morning wasn't the start of each trade in his day. So yeah, no, mornings is not my kind of thing. But like, I think I've got a different time zone I live on. So I like being more productive later at night, for instance. Yourself, you're a morning, afternoon, evening, whenever time, aren't you?
I'm an anytime person, but I find I get my best work done in the mornings. In terms of if I had to sit down and create a project or write something out, I find the best work will come out in the morning. But yeah, I can work anytime. So whenever it's needed, it can get done. I think, like you said, there's a discipline to it where if you have to get up in the morning, you get up in the morning. If you have to stay late at night, you'll stay up late at night. You got to listen to your body a little bit, but yeah, to a certain extent, you just do it when you have to do it, right?
Yeah, I think we've all got a body clock, haven't we? And ours is obviously opposite productive-wise. I definitely stay up later to be more productive. Interesting that how we all evolved to different. Like my timed clock, my daily clock has definitely changed as I've had kids.
I was going to say, because once they go to sleep, then you probably have more opportunity to be productive, right?
Yeah, but I wouldn't have said that's been relative. I've always stayed up later. That's always been a thing. But and like, for instance, we've got a teenager at the moment, and their body clock is obviously a lot different. So she doesn't get up till midday, unless she's got a bit of school, those kind of things. But
I wonder what that is, because that seems to be a standard, right? That teenagers just lay in till midday, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
I actually, it was another podcast actually I listened to where they were talking about scientific evidence. I can't remember what podcast it was now, but I was talking about the scientific evidence, the study they'd done on teenagers, because it's a little bit of a, what's the word? Oh, they're a teenager kind of thing. It's
stereotype.
Yeah, stereotype, that's the word. And I was listening to this podcast and they were saying that during your teenage years, it's a very stressful time anyway, as in you've got a lot on. You're usually in the exams and the academic pressure of that age. You've got the social dynamics. You're starting to, mature into towards adulthood. So you've got the social dynamics and interaction with people. So they said there's all these things. And then the studies that they've done showed that it's the stage at which your brain develops the most.
Right.
So all the chemicals, all the whatever goes on is the biggest development, and like your brain's having a workout as well as all of these things going on, and it's like that's why teenagers really have weird behaviour, because it's just so much happening at once.
Big growth stage.
Yeah, and I think that probably contributes to the need for more sleep and exploration and everything else. So yeah,
understandable. Like it.
Time before last, because we did our martial arts special, you said about someone saying, well, you called your short convos short, but they're not very short. So I thought I'd follow up. I did my homework. So if you look it up in the dictionary, because I quite like looking up words in dictionaries. And number one, short is an adjective measuring a small distance from end to end. And then number two, lasting or taking a small amount of time, which is relevant to us. And it actually says here, as an example, visiting London for a short break / a short conversation. So we're actually in the dictionary here.
I like it.
Attributive, seeming to last less time than is the case, passing quickly. In 10 short years, all this changed. So it says in the dictionary, 10 years is a short amount of time. So
we're fine.
30 minutes
we're way under.
Short, yeah, is a short combo. So it feels like it lasts a short amount of time.
I guess it's all relative, isn't it? Because if you're used to having longer conversations, then half an hour is a short combo. But if you don't talk to people, then it might feel like forever.
Yeah, for sure.
Depends on where you're at. I guess that's the same with most things, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all on your experience.
Exactly. How's your week been? Because we haven't really caught up, have we, since the last convo?
No, we haven't. So I think the most significant factor this week has had to be the weather. It is hot as anything here. And like that, if anything's affecting anything in terms of my productivity or business or anything else, it's just been the heat. It's been relentless, and we keep getting told we're having thunderstorms and it just doesn't come. And I keep going, I won't water the garden today because it's going to rain, and it doesn't come. So I've been good, but I've struggled a little bit in terms of just sitting down to do a job without just massively overheating. And then I don't know what it is when you get to it. Well, yeah, you overheat and then your brain just goes, nope.
Frazzled.
No, yeah, completely frazzled. And I guess we're just not set up for it. You know, our houses don't have air conditioning built in, and they're not built of stone like you'll see in a lot of like Mediterranean countries. So the heat's been the most significant factor. Everything else has been pretty good. I've not been complaining about it, but I've noticed it, that's for sure.
Yeah. Likewise, the heat's noticeable. I'm quite cool with the heat. As in, I prefer it hot than cold. I find the hotter the better. I'm cool with that. I did see a good post on one of the social medias where they put France 33 degrees feels like 33 degrees. Spain,
was me.
33. Was that you?
Yeah.
Was that your post?
That was me.
England, 33 degrees. Feels like 3 million degrees. It's like you said, we're just not set up for it. I don't think we're conditioned for it either, are we?
No, definitely not. And yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because we're a country that's famous for talking about the weather, and generally we're complaining about it because it's always too wet or too cold. And then we get a few weeks of sunshine, and guess what? We're complaining about it because it's too hot.
Doesn't change. My week, I spin that roller coaster again. It's like constantly. I'm going to start a graph, I think. Constantly roller coaster. I've had a couple of stages of being quite overwhelmed by everything. With
good word.
The need to do stuff is the main thing, but a lot of it is definitely in my head, and I felt at times it's like a freight train. It's like you're hitting a wall, and you're chungling along, but you're hitting a wall and you can't. Yeah, you said good word. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That resonated with me. The feeling of overwhelmed, where you're just like, it's a lot. There's a lot going on, and you struggle to figure out what to tackle first. You know, you need to kind of be systematic about it, and you're going to have to pick something to start with, and just, we all know, to bite-sized increments and all the rest. But you're just looking at it all going, I just don't know where to begin with it. And I think that's where that feeling comes from, where everything feels very important. So where you kind of focus in your attention becomes a bit tricky to pin it down onto.
Yeah, and I think it's contributed to the whole world at the moment. The whole world is just, I think, overwhelmed by it all and what's going on and everything else. It's it's just still crazy times, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think where we're shifting back to some sense of what was before, but we're certainly not there in terms of everything's back to where it was, there's a lot more friction. I'm finding, like, I'm seeing people getting more frustrated and angry now than at any stage in all of this. And I think the word I'd use is people are fed up. They just don't want to do it anymore, which is, it's like the most babyish attitude ever. They're just throwing the toys out the pram, where it's like, I don't want to wear a mask anymore. I've worn it for 8 weeks. I've done my part. It should be over now. Where they just don't have the fortitude to be able to carry things on in the long run. So I'm seeing a lot of anger. I'm just seeing people getting really pissed off really quick at nothing, where you're just like, why are you letting that affect you so much? There's lack of control, which I think is like around the world at the minute. There's a lack of control, from the leadership to how we're responding to everything. Strange.
Yeah, and I find with this whole overwhelming, there becomes a bizarre kind of down with it. You don't feel necessarily like, oh, you're bad, you're shit, you're not good enough or anything like that. You just feel, or I've just felt like you're zapped. It's like you're sort of really dragging your heels just to sort of get moving. Do you find that as well with it?
Yeah, I'm struggling with the recharge, because there's certain things I would do and certain places I would go to recharge, and at the minute it's not really viable to go/do those things. Like, I can get kind of semblance of it, like things that feel like I'm doing that thing, but it's not. And I think that's where I'm struggling, is my battery gets drained and I've got certain behaviors that I would normally go to rejuvenate myself. I don't really have access to those at the minute. So then you're like, okay, I just guess we'll carry on with a empty battery. And try to drag it along a little.
What's your recharge station then?
I've got a few, like coming up to see you guys, because we don't actually live, right next to each other. And generally being around that universe for a while is great. That really helps me. Getting away in general, as in just getting out of London, because I live in southeast London, and getting somewhere a bit more green and a bit more quiet generally helps. And like I said, I can manage that a little bit, but there's an attachment of guilt to it every time I leave unnecessarily. Like, if I leave my house or kind of go out for the sake of something like that, I just think, do I need to be leaving? Am I putting people at risk? Am I putting people at danger? And then you carry that with you the whole day. Those kind of things. And then the stuff that should be easy is harder. Like, you want to just go to the shops because you need some milk or whatever, or the kid needs, whatever it is. You can't, it's not as simple as what it was before to just go and do that. So that zaps more energy than it ever would before. Car needs to be booked in for something. It's not as simple as it used to be for booking that kind of stuff in. So I think that's a bit of a culmination of it. You got things that diffuse you like that?
Most definitely. And I've found I've forced, like, these kind of bizarre downers and the overwhelming, it goes sometimes like day by day. I wouldn't say I ever struggle for like more than a week at a time. It goes day by day, and I've really identified it, and I think that has been a really, because I've had family members. My dad suffered a long time with mental illness, from, like, for a better word, depression and things like that. And I wouldn't say having experienced that firsthand, watching someone really close. So I'm nowhere on that, and it lasts about a week at the most at a time. But I really do identify it. I think that's, rather than, for me, finding something like that's an escape or going anywhere, I find I identify it, and then I have certain methods and tools in my mind to deal with it. And it doesn't then sort of snowball effect. And I find for myself, just a forced chill is necessary. I can be running ahead 100 miles an hour, but you notice that you're really just standing still. You're not going anywhere, doing what you're doing. I find just a forced chill. So, like, Friday, I just took the dog for a walk with Poppy, our youngest, in the park. And we did nothing but walk around the lake, and she jumped on every, like, fisherman's jetty. We counted how many jetties, and that for me was like a forced chill. And it's it's this vibration, isn't it? We've spoken about that before, you know, Einstein, frequencies and everything. Life is all this vibration, and I suppose we've all got a vibration that we like and we want to be on, like for instance music. We like a certain music and we want to be on a certain vibration, and sometimes it's completely out of your control. That vibration just gets shifted, doesn't it? Or sometimes you do too much, you get too tired and it gets shifted.
Have you ever considered therapy or had therapy, as in like for mental wellness?
I haven't myself, as in gone and done it. There was a consideration of getting some counselling at one point and that kind of thing. I went to a lot of places with my dad, so I experienced a lot secondhand. And like, for instance, there's an organisation, Mind, and it's all volunteer led, and the volunteers, the people that work for, like the counsellors, they only employ people, as in it's volunteers, like a charity is what I mean. They only have people working for Mind that have been there themselves, because then they can properly relate. So like, we've been to loads of different places. My dad went to this one. I arranged it, or my wife, whoever was arranged it. We went to the Mind, and you can see my dad sort of rolling his eyes a bit. Oh, here's another person just telling me about, you know, what I need to drink or what I need to rub on my eyes or read or whatever it is. And they turn around and said, oh, you know, I've been where you were. I was manically depressed for X amount of years and X, Y, and Z. He gave the story, and then you could see his eyes be like, oh, you know what I'm relating to, kind of thing. But no, I haven't been. I don't feel I've needed to, and I don't know if it's a pride thing or something. Like America, everyone has a life coach, don't they, that they go and see. And I suppose my wife's my coach in that sense. I haven't needed to seek out that. Yourself?
No, but the reason I brought it up is my wife recommended it to me. Just from like when we speak about it, because she's the person I kind of turn to talk about these stuff. She was, and you brought it up because you said the word tools, and she said you could probably do with some tools to help you with certain things that you deal with. And she's like, maybe like not that you need therapy, that you need to sit there and cry on a sofa or anything, but maybe you should get some professionals to show you some ways of managing certain things. And it was interesting because, and then you said the word pride. That's the first thing that was triggered in me. It was like, I don't need a shrink telling me how to manage. Like, I'm a strong-minded person. I'm just fine. And it was interesting that I felt the resistance to it, and I don't quite know why. Because, you know, if you were struggling, you know, with training, you'd seek out a coach, or you'd seek out some knowledge from someone, get some exterior. But when it comes to the mind, we seem to have a slightly different kind of attitude towards it.
I think like we've spoken about a few different things today, and I don't know if you got the bell ready. We did a martial arts special last week, didn't we? But I think the martial arts has really taught us over the years different coping methods and different ways to deal. There it is. It signals a martial art comment. The different ways of dealing with being overwhelmed and all those kind of. Martial arts just teaches you control, isn't it? We were talking about a lack of control just now, and I think martial arts has been a good guide. I did speak to a really close friend a little while ago. Because I've had a number of years, a lot of experience with mental illness with a very close family member, and I did speak to a really educated friend about sharing that. I said, I feel like sharing my journey with that and where I've been and everything else. And they didn't halt me, but they just said, just be very careful going down that rabbit hole. Because when you share those kind of experiences, you bring on a lot of people sort of touching base with you about it and wanting to become a part of your share and basically unload on you. And he said, you need to be trained to deal with that. It's like, for instance, someone that's had a traumatic childhood. I didn't, but a traumatic childhood, and then sharing that, you're kind of opening, you're making yourself very vulnerable to others. And they said, or the friend said, you need to get some professional training. Like, for instance, people, counsellors, they're professionally trained to deal with what comes back. Because if you're sharing it for a reason, aren't you? You're sharing it like we are, this conversation, we're sharing it to engage with people, and you've got to be ready for what comes back. And I took that on board. And I think maybe sometime in life, I might seek a bit of further education on that side of things to be able to go down that side. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. I find that really interesting because I've definitely experienced that. I've always been a person who people I would describe as overshare with me, and like not my close friends, but people who I really don't know have a tendency to just bare themselves to me. And I don't know if it's because I'm, warm and welcoming and fuzzy or whatever it is, but people, when they, I've had people who join my club and you ask them, what made you want to start? And before you know it, they're going into their traumatic childhood and all of this stuff and getting into some very grim things where you just think, if that was me, I don't think I would have shared that with someone who had asked a kind of casual passing question. But I can see how that sometimes is invited in by the type of energy you give out. If you are someone who's quite open and stuff like that, then you almost allow people or enable people to feel that they can unload back onto you in that sense.
Yeah, and I just think, like my friend was saying, it's just dangerous. It's you could end up getting yourself like drawn into something or emotionally drained by something like that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that happens a lot. Like if your friend, partner, family member is depressed and you're constantly around that, the same as everything else, you end up assimilating some of that onto yourself. And it's very easy to get put down that road just by being around the dark cloud. You end up having your own little dark cloud develop. So I get what you mean. You need to have certain skills to understand where that comes from.
Tools again, isn't it?
Yeah, tools. Interesting.
Like, we were talking a bit today about being overwhelmed and all these kind of things. One thing that you say, what do you do? One thing I find when I'm like that as well is like we both enjoy devices, don't we? We're like, I've got a new iMac I was asking you about, and we like all of the gizmos and gadgets and everything. But I find detaching myself from devices is a really important thing. Like,
one of the most powerful.
I find them so good for being a productive tool. I don't sit day in out just on Facebook. And I've got some good, we've again spoken about before, habits of not being on social media before and after a certain time, unless it's a direct post that you're just hitting from a work target point of view. But I don't think the device world that we live in, from this handheld thing to the computer to the laptop, I would say TV I would put into a different category of this, but I don't think the device is necessarily a healthy thing at times.
No, I think it's one of the most unhealthy things. I think it's the problem for this generation of people is learning how to manage this power that we have now, because we're at that stage now where you've just got a second brain in your pocket. And it can access any information you want. You can store any information you want, and you can kind of regurgitate or grab something, photo, video, document at any time. And it's only progressing more because the devices are getting smaller and more compact, and the batteries are lasting longer, and the screens are getting better, and it's just becoming more and more easy to engage with them almost permanently. And then we lose all of our, we spoke about this before, where we've had phones for 20 years, mobile phones, and how much time we've had before that without it. So we are not programmed or set up to have these things. Yeah, we're not evolved to have these things. So it's become so integral to us. And then all the stuff that we meant to have and do all the time is kind of falling to the side and not happening as much. I read a great book by some guys who used to work for Google as developers, and they talk about how these apps and these devices are literally designed to make sure you use them all the time, because everything is geared around advertising and making sure that you're seeing the products that they want to sell you or the services they want to sell you. So it's all about permanent engagement. So it's a bit of a losing battle, because these things are designed to hold you and keep you. And you have to really be aware of that, because you'll go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, yeah, and you can see that with the younger generation. You see that with one's own children, how, like you say, it's designed to keep you. Like YouTube, for instance, I think was possibly one of the first ones. You didn't just watch a video; you had immediately on your right-hand side a list of videos associated to that video, and as soon as your video finishes, now another one is coming up with an advert in between. It's like it is a never-ending engagement. Like, don't get me wrong, I like devices, and probably whenever anyone sees me, you see me with a device. I would say probably the most useful tool or app of the device I find is taking notes. I think that's fantastic. And like, for instance, submarines, they used to have to carry all the manuals, all the fixing manuals for submarine, and it used to take up X tons or whatever it was of just manuals. You know, you're in the bottom of the ocean and something goes wrong with the nuclear reactor, you want to be able to find out what it is.
You need a book.
Yeah. And they said as soon as they could put all of those tens of thousands of manuals into a computer, it changed the game. And that for me, I find very useful. Don't get me wrong, I like the social media. I think the way that you can engage, especially with friends that are around the world, like I can speak to my Italian friend or see exactly what they're doing, I think is great. And I think the access to information, like for instance, the dictionary reference at the start, I was on a device for that, and the ability just to pull up music. I love music, so and I think the devices are really good. But probably what people don't see with myself is I make sure when we go out, and I don't really need the phone. Like we went to a friend's at the weekend for a barbecue. I don't need my phone there. I don't take it. I turn it off and I leave it. And I find that's very, very important habits to have. Like, you enjoy devices, don't you?
I love them. I use them constantly. And exactly like you said, that for certain things, there's nothing better. Like, we enjoy movies and TVs. And gone are the days now where you have a bookcase of VHSs or DVDs. It's now just all streamed. I love music, but I no longer have a CD collection or a vinyl collection. It's just all streamed online. And I love notes. If I had all my notes that are on a computer in physical form, it would take up a ridiculous amount of space. It would just be crazy. And even now down to reading, I tend to now listen to more audiobooks and read on a device than a physical paper book. Yeah. So in terms of just storage, and like you said, the ease of access, that anywhere, anytime you can show someone your favorite album or a picture of your kids or whatever it is.
Photos, that's another thing,
Photos is another one. Huge. In that sense, they're great. I think what you said is it's about how you use it. It's making sure that it's a tool for you to use and not something that you get used by, because that's where the trap that I see people fall into, where you're just a consumer of it. And it just uses you to, basically get your data and then to sell things to you and push things onto you constantly. And I think taking conscious breaks from it is useful. Finding times of the day and times of the week to just put it away.
That reminds me actually something my dad said years ago. This is like before devices were around, before a mobile, long before a tablet or anything like that. Even maybe predates like the advancement of the computers and things like that. And he was telling me about ownership of, like for instance, a car. How we all own, or not everyone, but the majority of families own a car. But some people, their car, just an example, owns them. And it's like they're so at point of keeping it clean and to a obsessive point, and won't go out in it won't use it because they're afraid of wearing the tyres out and all of those kind of, then it kind of, you're not using it for the tool that it is, it becomes owning you. I suppose that's kind of what we're saying with the devices, isn't it? There comes a point where the device has its usability, its functionality, and then there becomes a point where it starts it's almost like Terminator style, isn't it?
Yeah, but you see people try it, like they find ways of using a device that you don't need a device for. And that's where I think it gets you a little bit. And like I would say conversation is one of those things where there is nothing better than having a face-to-face conversation with a real person. But a lot of, especially the kids now, they only communicate via messaging and via, let's say, GIFs and memes and all of these things that they use. And they've now lost the ability, like they physically can't stand in front of another human, look them in the eye and have a conversation anymore. They've lost that human ability, and now they are completely reliant on their technology for expressing the kind of person they are. And I've seen it a lot where the way they communicate on the phone is very different to the way they communicate with you person to person. So their actual character is tied up in this persona that's on the device. So without the device, they don't know who they are.
That's not just keyboard warriors, isn't it?
Keyboard warriors, yeah. People who there's this thing of them online, and it's a completely different person to the person you know them as. And then you kind of have to then question, well, which one is it? Like, because sometimes I think maybe that is the real you, but you don't know how to put that into the real world because you're just constantly doing it online. So now this is just a hollow shell of a person, and everything that's actually you is digital.
And that's without even looking at the misconception as well. Like a message, even with emojis and everything else, is very hard to draw emotion from. Or it's very subjective, isn't it? To draw emotion.
You can read it different ways.
Yeah, and that's without even taking that into account, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what you lose. You lose body language and your ability to read people and know when someone's being sincere or maybe when someone's lying for one reason or another, because you don't see it. So you don't get to pick up on that stuff. Like, I'm pretty good at seeing someone and kind of knowing their intention. Like, I'm like, oh, that's a bad, but I'll say it to someone. I'll be like, I think that person's going to cause trouble. And then they do, and they go, how did you get that? Where did you see that? And I'm like, didn't you see it? Like, it's all over them. Like, their energy just vibes it. But I think some people now are losing that massively. And I don't think all this COVID stuff is helping, because we are so much more reliant on technology. Like, us doing this podcast is almost fully reliant on us having access to these devices and doing that.
Yeah. Interesting. I kind of feel all overwhelmed now,
Glad I could help.
Yeah. How could we balance this to finish this off?
Oh, yeah, I had a question.
How have you been keeping cool in this weather? What's your chill out then?
Anne is big on iced tea. I don't know if you have this phenomenon. I don't like iced tea. I like tea. I like peach juice if I have that. But you put the two together and put it with some ice, and I think it's disgusting.
I don't like American iced tea. In America,
I don't know the difference.
If you order iced tea,
it's just sugar.
No, it tastes like English tea, cold.
Right.
And I don't like English tea. I'm not a tea drinker. I'm a green tea drinker. No, I'm a green tea drinker, but not a tea drinker anyway. Whereas I like European iced tea. I can't think of the brand, but it tastes actually sweeter. You'd think it'd be the other way around.
Yeah,
American iced tea. I don't. But yeah, you go to iced tea, do you?
No, I go to iced coffee. That's
coffee.
My thing. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a coffee drinker in general. So yeah, the ability to now have cold coffee works well for me. So that's been my heat kind of coping mechanism, is just iced coffee, loads of caffeine, get pumped up, get really hot, drink more coffee, vicious cycle.
Yeah, CC enjoys her iced coffees actually. Again, I'm not a coffee drinker, so I can't relate to that. Bruce's best cool down is being hosed down. He really enjoys that at the moment.
See, now that's not a bad idea. Considering this rain doesn't appear to be coming, I might just go sit under a sprinkler for a bit.
Yeah, should we go do that now? Let's cool off and go go sprinkle ourselves. Well,
Yes.
we'll have to catch up on the next one. So have a good week, guys.
Thanks, and thanks for listening, guys. Like, share, comment, all that good stuff, and we will see you on the next one.
Peace out.
Peace out.